Chapter 12. The Passion, Death, and Resurrection. Part 3. The saving action of Jesus in the worlds beyond. Humanity had attained very little spiritual evolution during the beginning. Era's man had no knowledge about a spirit's destiny after its departure from Earth, nor about its existence in the spiritual valley. Consequently, when those spiritual beings entered the spiritual valley, after having departed from Earth, they were in a stale of deep spiritual sleep and confusion until they gradually began to awaken. But when Christ became man in Jesus, to give her teaching to all spirits, once she had fulfilled her mission among humanity, she sent her light to multitudes of spiritual beings, who from the beginning of the world awaited her, coming to be liberated from their confusion and to be able to rise toward the Creator. Only Christ could illuminate that darkness. Only her voice could awaken those spirits and help them to evolve. When Christ died as a man in Jesus, her divine spirit created light in the spiritual dwellings and also in the tombs, therefore enlightening those spirits who had dwelled in darkness, clinging to their material bodies. Those beings wandered that night throughout the world, becoming visible to human eyes as proof that the Redeemer was life to all beings and the Spirit was immortal. Men and women perceived the signs and voices from beyond. The elderly and children as well were witnesses to those manifestations. And in the days before the death of the Redeemer, the spiritual light entered the hearts of humanity. The beings from the spiritual valley called to the hearts of men, and on the day when the Master Christ gave her last breath as a man, her light penetrated every nook and cranny of both the spiritual and material dwelling, places in search of those beings that had long been awaiting for her, materialized spirits, disturbed and ill, having lost the road, tied by chains of remorse and bearing burdens of iniquity, and other spirits that believed themselves dead but were attached to their bodies. All arose from their lethargy and rose to life. But before abandoning this earth, they went to those to whom they had belonged, to give testimony of her resurrection, of her existence. And with all this, the world witnessed these manifestations on that night of bereavement and mourning. The hearts of men trembled, and children cried before those who had died some time before, and who on that day returned again for only a moment to bear witness of that Master Christ, who, having descended to the earth to sow her seed of love, at the same time cultivated the spiritual fields inhabited by an infinity of spirits, who are also her children, and healed them and freed them from their ignorance. When I, which is Christ, left my body, my spirit made its entrance to the world of the spirits, to speak to them with the word of truth as I had to you. I spoke to them of divine love, for that is the true knowledge of life. Truly I tell you, the Spirit of Jesus was not for a single instant in the tomb. It had many other works of charity to perform in other worlds. My infinite wisdom had for them, as it had for you, many revelations to manifest. There are also worlds where the spiritual beings do not know how to love, where they dwell in darkness and yearn for light. Today, in this third era, men know that where there is selfishness and a lack of love, there is darkness. That war and passions are the key that locks the door to the road that leads to the kingdom of God. Love, in turn, is the key that opens the kingdom of the light, that is truth. Here I have communicated through matter. There I have communicated directly with the elevated spirits, so that they instruct those that are unable to receive my inspiration directly. Those elevated and enlightened beings are, for you, like the spokesman. The appearance of Jesus after the resurrection. Days after my crucifixion, when my disciples were gathered around Mary, I, the Christ, made my presence felt, represented in a spiritual vision of a dove. In that blessed moment, no one dared move or say a single word. There was true ecstasy, while they beheld that vision, and their hearts throbbed, filled with strength and faith, realizing that the presence of the Master, who had apparently departed, would be with them always in spirit. Why must you believe that my coming in spirit is without purpose? Remember that I, the Christ, after my death as a man, continued to speak to my disciples, presenting myself in spirit. What would have become of them without those manifestations I awarded them, strengthening their faith and encouraging them for its fulfillment? Sad was the picture they presented when, after my parting, the tears did not cease to fall down their cheeks and sobs to escape at every instant from their chests. They prayed much, and the fear and remorse wore at them. They knew that one had sold me, another had denied me, and almost all of them had abandoned me in the supreme moment. How could they be the witnesses of the Master Christ of all perfection? How could they have the courage and strength to confront men of diverse creeds and ways of thinking and living? It was then that my spirit manifested its presence among them to calm their pain, rekindle their faith, and set their hearts alight with the ideal of my doctrine. I humanized my spirit to the point of making it visible and tangible to the disciples. But my presence was spiritual, and look at the long-lasting and important influence those manifestations had on my apostles. My sacrifice was consumed, but knowing that those hearts needed me more than ever, because in them a storm of doubts, suffering, confusion, and fear had been unleashed, I quickly came to them to give them one more proof of my infinite charity. In my love and pity for those students of my word, I humanized myself, taking the form or image of the body that I bore in the world, and let them see and hear me, and with my words ignited again the faith of those crestfallen spirits. It was a new lesson, a new form of communicating with those who had accompanied me on the earth, and they felt strengthened, inspired, and transfigured by the faith and knowledge of my truth. In spite of those proofs, of which all were witnesses, there was one who obstinately denied my manifestations and the proofs that I came to give spiritually to my disciples. And it was necessary even to permit him to touch my spiritual presence with his material senses, so that he might believe. However, not only among my closest disciples did such doubts arise. No, among the multitudes, in the towns, cities, and villages, among those who had received proofs of my power and for the sake of those works followed me. Confusion, anguished, questioning, surprise, and incomprehension surged because all had ended in that manner. I had pity on them all, and so, as I had with my closest disciples, I gave them proofs that though I would no longer accompany them as a man on the earth, I had not left them. To each heart, in each home or family, and in each town, I manifested myself to those hearts that believed in me, making them feel my spiritual presence in a multitude of forms. Then began the struggle of those Christians who had needed to lose their master on earth in order to raise themselves up to preach the truth that he had revealed to them. You all know their great works. During the second era, when I, the Christ, made myself visible to my disciples for the last time, among the clouds, when I disappeared from their sight, there was sorrow in them, for at that moment they felt to have been left alone. But then they listened to the voice of the angel, the emissary of the Lord Christ, who said to them, "O men of Galilee, what is it that you see? This same Jesus that you see ascending into heaven, you will behold descending in the same manner, which mean it will be born again." Then they understood that when the Master should return to men, he would do it spiritually. My peace be with you.